we are happy this morning. Yes, I know. Can you, everyone, ready to start our program? We welcome Dr. Heather Burrows. She is a staff member at Michigan Medicine and graduated from U of M and medical school and a PhD in molecular and cellular biology. Wow, with a PhD, that's good. She also is the head of the pediatric residency program. And she and her husband, who is an internal medicine hospitalist. And yes, right, and they have a parent. They are parents, so that speaks well for practicing what you believe in. But especially important, she is Eva's doctor. So that is, a big star, right. So we welcome you and look forward to hearing from you this morning.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody so much. I'm really excited to get a chance to talk about something that I care a lot about, and it was really nice of Eva's parents to invite me, so I thank them for that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kids in the out of doors and sort of the advantages of it and some ways that we can get our kids maybe outside a little bit more. So next slide. So you heard a little bit about me already, but I will share with you that I am a child of the 70s, and so I had to be home when the street lights came on. So my parents pushed me out the door, and that was the plan. I'm an Army brat, so I grew up all over the United States and frequently lived on military bases where you were in a community with lots and lots of kids your same age, and we kind of ran wild. And so that probably speaks to some of my interests. As you heard, I went to the University of Michigan for all my time, so I've lived in Ann Arbor for 30 plus years, and have really appreciated opportunities to get a lot of green space here. One of the things that I really value about my upbringing is that I also grew up camping. So my parents are from northern Michigan, and my dad would take me out for a long weekend in the pup tent and mess around in the dirt and really enjoy that. So that is to let you know my biases of how I come by this. Next slide. I'll also share a little bit about my family. So you heard that my husband is an internist. We love to go backpacking. That's what we do for fun. And so we've taken our daughter outside from the very beginning. We have a large garden with chickens that we started when she was little because we wanted her to know where food came from and what things were. We keep chickens. We do let her kiss the chickens, although we tell her to wash her hands afterwards. She's grown up now. And when she was 5, we took her on her first backpacking trip into the Tetons. I will share with you later that there is a danger to doing this with your children, and it's some real dangers to this. So that's the teaser for the end of this. Next slide. So I've told you a little bit about myself and about my family, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about kids and outside and where they are, why they should be where they maybe aren't, and what we can do to maybe increase that. So when we look at where children are right now, a lot of times they're inside and they're on their phones. When we look at data of where children are spending their time, they are less likely to be in the out of doors now than they were maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And when they are outside, that time is very structured. And there's some disadvantages to that. Why do we do that? Some of it is us, right? Most of it is us. We have academic pressures that they're really supposed to be doing schoolwork and taking 15 AP classes and all of those things. And we're scared of what might happen to them when they're outside, and so that impacts where they're doing that. There's some really scary data that children spend about 7 to 8 hours of time on screens during the day, which is an awful lot of time to be spending looking at a little screen and selling your soul to the companies that are advertising on that. When are they doing what they're doing? It seems sort of counterintuitive, and it is a holiday weekend for some of the schools, so this may not resonate with you, but children are actually less active on school breaks and in the summer than they are during the school year. And we have done an experiment in the last 5 years where we kind of looked at that. When the shutdown happened, there was a lot of concern about how active children were during that time. I will tell you that from looking at growth curves, we saw significant increases in weight in a lot of children during that time because of decreased activity. And the data really bears that out. So multiple studies during the 20 to 21 year showed significant decreases in the amount of time that children were spending. A little bit more in adolescents than in younger children, but still both. Some of it was because of decreased opportunities to participate in sports and other structured activities, but a lot of it was just not spending as much time outside. And even just getting to school, going out for play time, recess, really made a difference with that. And it didn't impact everybody the same. So if you were in an apartment in New York City, you really were not active. If you had the luxury of having a home with a backyard, you could go outside in your own space and go and do that. Next slide, please. So what is it that we would wish for children to be doing? So free play is a technical term that means that play that is controlled and structured by children. So this isn't us telling them what to do. It's not a soccer game or something like that. It's them, outside till the streetlights come on. And in 1989, the UN had a convention on the rights of children, and they discussed the importance of this. So number 31 is the right to play time, and that's structured or unstructured free play time for children. That was really called out as important. This free play, this opportunity to spend time controlling what you're doing, there's information that it really improves competency and increases physical activity and learning skills like problem solving and ability to regulate your own emotions. There's something about being in control of your own space that matters. Next slide. And physical activity is important, right? So we know that if you are spending the recommended amount of activity, so that's 60 minutes of vigorous activity per day and less than 2 hours of screen time and getting appropriate amounts of sleep. So children need more sleep than teenagers. Teenagers need way more sleep than they think they need. That when we see kids who are getting this, they have better motor and cognitive development. They have greater cardiovascular fitness, less cardiometabolic risk factors. Their bones are healthier. It improves their blood pressure and also their aerobic fitness, and really improves mental health as well. But we're maybe getting kids physical activity, but less of that free time. It's much more structured and oftentimes indoors. Next slide, please. Oh, my animation is not working. I'm so sorry. I think it's because I did it as a PDF. That was my problem. I had too many pictures. I was told not to put lots of words on the slides, and so I tried to do pictures. So pretend you can see double. So risky outdoor play, there's a lot of data that this is what we really should be encouraging our children to do. And what that means is situations where the child can recognize and evaluate a challenge and decide on a course of action. It's not playing on a broken play structure and where you're at like hazards. It's where there's some risk involved and you decide whether or not you want to do it and you control it. And these are things that are thrilling and exciting. Maybe going at speed, so riding a bicycle, or at height, so climbing up on a play structure and being able to do the monkey bars, sliding down a fire pole, things that are maybe involve tools, so a hammer or something like that, things that maybe are kind of rough and tumble and as an adult feels like, oh, this is out of control, but there's really some benefits from it. When children engage in risky outdoor play, they have more developed motor skills, more social behaviors. They've learned how to interact with each other in this way. There's also some interesting evidence that it might improve your immune system. When play structures have things like sticks and tires and things that move around, you have actually improved bacteria in your gut and increased immune regulation. So, playing in dirt is probably good for us, is what the moral of that is, right? There's also some interesting thought that some of this may improve your ability to manage making decisions about risky behaviors. So may make you less likely to engage with drugs or alcohol in an unhealthy way as an adolescent, engage in unhealthy sexual behaviors as well. So this idea of like we learn how to do risk and it's somewhat helpful. There's also some evidence about how it might impact your development of anxiety. So giving children opportunities to be in fear-provoking situations, to give them that uncertainty and learn how to address it and deal with it, may make you more able to manage that level of uncertainty later on, which is often where we see, unfortunately, when it's a little too much, kind of issues with anxiety. So risky outdoor play, something that is good for our children to do. Next slide, please. This is just a reminder that this is true for all kids. So really making sure that playground structures and places outside are accessible. There's a lot of really cool things that are being done in parks that have, rentable wheelchairs that have all-terrain abilities. There's some really cool packs that you can attach your kid to and take them. I have several patients who use wheelchairs whose parents take them out into the backcountry on sort of rough and tumble paths. So anyone who has the ability to interact with families, really encouraging everybody to get outside in some way or another is really helpful. Next slide. I know what you're all thinking, which is, oh my goodness, this pediatrician is telling us to let our kids do dangerous and risky things. It is true that there are many visits to the playground, to the emergency room for injuries that happen on playground structures, over 2 million over the course of 10 years. However, these are actually for mostly minor situations. Like, for example, many years ago when my daughter was doing amazingly on the monkey bars, and I encouraged her to do it a few more times, and she fell and broke her arm right in front of me. So this is her with her cast many, many years ago. Most of these are minor. There's actually fewer concussions from play outside, from climbing trees, from playing on play structures, than from like organized activities where we think kids are going to be safe, like soccer, football, things like that. So safe, risky, but within the range of safe. And there's some, next slide, idea that if you make things too boring, kids want that thrill. Anybody in here who has a little kid is knowing, they're nodding their heads when I say this, right? Thrill is exciting. So if you have what's called a kit fence carpet play structure as your only option, which is that kit, there's a fence around it, it's got a like carpet on it. Kids are like, okay, this is fine. How can I climb to the top of that and jump off of it with a stick in my hand because I'm pretending to fly or something like that? So you have to have enough thrill to make it worthwhile, or they will find a way to make it more exciting and actually hurt themselves. Next paragraph, or next one, thank you. And one way that you can help with this is having some parental guidance, supervision, not hovering, which is really hard not to do, but some ways that can be encouraging them. And these are some things to say besides just be careful, which of course is the natural inclination that we all have. But do you feel stable on that log? Like, how are you feeling? Help them think about what that experience is like. Do you see your friends? Are they as high as you are? What do you think about that? These rocks are slippery or sharp. What do you do? How are you going to navigate that? These are all things that you can use in these risky play environments to make it both an engaging and thoughtful and mindful activity, but also maybe help them think about where their decisions are if they're making them. Next slide. So I obviously think that being outside and being in nature is really wonderful and great. There's actually a term for feeling connectedness with nature, so biophilia. This is this idea of nature connectedness, and it contributes to positive emotions, happiness, and some subjective well-being. There's some studies that if you spend about 120 minutes a week in green spaces of some sort, you have better sleep, lower blood pressure, improved circadian rhythms, decreased mental health, and probably, very interestingly, improvements in myopia. So there's some evidence that children who spend time outside see better, and they're less likely to need glasses at an earlier age. So if you needed another reason to want to have kids outside, you can save money on glasses. Next paragraph, or next slide, sorry. There's a study, like a questionnaire that you can use that assesses your nature relatedness, and I just think this is funny. So you can sort of think about a number in your head. 0 is none, 1 is somewhat, 2 is very, and these are the 6 questions or 7 questions that you ask. 1 is, I enjoy being outside in nature. My favorite places are outside in nature. I spend time outdoors whenever I can. I notice plants and animals wherever I am. I feel very connected to all living things in the earth. My relationship to nature is an important part of who I am, and I think about what I do affects the earth. And this is used as like a study tool to try to understand what factors might contribute to a child having that connectedness, that biophilia. There's no surprise data that if you spend time outside, you're more likely to score more highly on this. And so think about it for yourself, think about it for the kids in your lives, and see if you can maybe move the needle a little bit about one of these things. Next slide. One of the other really important things that you can have about being outside is awe. And feeling and experiencing awe, whether it's enjoying your beautiful stained glass windows that Gail told me you guys are renovating and they're looking beautiful, singing together as a group, which you may have been able to experience with the hymns and services today. These are all really important for us as humans. When we experience awe, we have reduced stress hormones, so our cortisol levels are lower, our adrenaline levels are lower, our blood pressure is less. We pay less attention thinking about ourselves and think more about the people around us, the world around us, the space around us. It increases our connectivity, and I think, this is again one of my biases. One of the really important things that we are struggling with in society right now is that sense of connectedness. And so it sounds funny, but being out in nature, not necessarily with a lot of other people, but it can connect you and make you feel like what you're doing matters to other people. This can be enjoying flowers, watching the sunset. There's spending time with trees. There's even some data that, like, if you have a window that looks out over trees versus not trees, you're healthier and better. There's some just good, disturbing, data that if you're in a hospital or if you're in a nursing home and you look at pictures of trees, that is also good. I don't want us to go to just looking at pictures. I want us to actually look at the trees, so I don't want to replace all our windows with just like screens. So I kind of like the data, but then I also don't like the data. But being able to have that time with experiencing nature is really helpful. And even short periods of time, so 20 minutes in a park, if you assess yourself after that, you can have some decreases in your blood pressure and really feel better as a result. Next slide. This particularly impacts certain children. So there is some suggestion, this is correlation, not causation, which I think we've all gotten to hear a little bit more about the differences between those two recently, that increased screen time and decreased time in nature leads to increased rates of ADHD. Some interesting studies that children who spend more time on screens as young kids are much more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. There's some theories behind why that may be, that if you're seeing rapidly moving things, your brain gets used to and needs rapidly moving things, and so that may contribute to it. Again, we don't know for sure, but certainly very interesting. But there's also some data that green space and nature can be helpful. So in studies of children 7 to 12 who've been diagnosed with ADHD, if they engage in an outdoor green activity, so going to a park, doing something like that, versus spending time doing outdoor activities that are more urban in nature or indoor activities, when observers are looking at them after that, their symptoms of ADHD are decreased, so that time in nature can be helpful. Another really interesting study took, again, children who had been diagnosed with ADHD and had them go on a guided nature walk for 20 minutes looking at trees, and then they did a puzzle activity that required focus and attention, and observers that had no idea what they had done. So they either did a 20-minute walk in the trees or a 20-minute walk, again, more in an urban setting. The children who had spent time in nature were scored as having decreased symptoms of difficulty with focus and more ability to pay attention. So little tiny bits of time can actually make a significant difference, which I think is pretty cool. Next slide. I've missed some of my slide pages. So what are some ways that we can do this in a really engaging and fun way? There's something called forest bathing. The Japanese term for it is shinrin-yaka, and it is this idea of really mindfully engaging and spending time in behaviors that promote positive emotions. So in one study, there's organic compounds that are released, like, essential oils that the plants and trees release, and that when you breathe those in, you actually change your immune system. You have increased natural killer cells and are healthier as a result of it. So if you need another reason to get kids out there and spending time in trees or in nature, particularly trees, this might be one. So really it's this idea of not just randomly walking through the trees, but going in and spending time and actually focusing and paying attention and being fully present in that space. Also, it's a really cool name, and so I kind of like it for that reason. So, next slide. Another fun thing that you can do, we do this with young kids, but it's really fun as an adult too, is to do a rainbow walk. So go out and look purposely for things. So try to identify one thing of every color while you're out there. Some of them are easy to find and some of them are more difficult, but it makes you pay attention and focus and look at things a little bit differently. Next slide. A 5 senses safari, so go out and find something that you see and something that you smell and something that you touch. Now I will say that when you look these up for daycares and preschools, they'll talk about bringing snacks with you. I personally love urban foraging, and so I would advocate for that. Ann Arbor has some great patches of black raspberries. There's a lot of service berries and boysenberries that you can get. I may go mushrooming in some of the parks in town as well, which you can't eat them as you're on the walk, but are helpful to bring home with you. Some great chicken of the woods and morels in many of the parks around here. My daughter personally believes that any walk that does not involve food that she has found on the walk is not a useful walk. There is a house by us that has an apricot tree, and it's just far enough from the sidewalk that you can't really justify that you're reaching it without going on their yard. And last year they had a bumper crop of apricots, as many of the stone fruits in this area were, and I don't think knew that they had an apricot tree because the apricots were rotting on the tree, and it was like excruciatingly painful. So, you could ask neighbors if they're okay if you forage from their trees, but there's a lot of good foraging to be had. Next slide. You can also do a silly stroll, so walking like animals. Penguin walking is super fun. You can walk backwards, you can walk on your toes, you can walk sideways, you can skip. Sort of practice doing different things while you're out there. You can take turns, so every block, one person gets to pick how they're gonna walk the next way. During the COVID shutdown, one of our neighbors did some really fun like chalking on their sidewalk, and every day they would write a different way you were supposed to walk when you went past their house when we were all going for long walks on a regular basis. And it makes you just laugh and have fun, and there's, of course, really great things from a cortisol standpoint with that too. Next slide. You can also pay I Spy. So, again, taking turns looking for something on the track. You can also come up with a list of 10 things you're going to look for before you go on the walk, and you try to see who finds those 10 things first, whether it's a pine cone or orange leaf or a yellow flower or whatever those things might be. Again, getting people to pay attention and focus and spend time looking at what's happening. Next slide. There's some great resources out there. So there's a program called Parks RX America. So this is the website for it. And it is an effort to get pediatricians and other physicians to write prescriptions for nature and spending time in parks. The best part about this website is it has a nice listing of parks. There aren't as many in this area, but if you're going somewhere else, kind of looking and trying to find things that you would enjoy. As an aside, one of the things that we did a lot when my daughter was younger is letterboxing, which is a great way to get out and do different things. So people may have heard of geocaching, where you can go and there's like a GPS marker that you go and find the box, and once you open the box, there's like trinkets in it, and you take a trinket and you leave a trinket. All very well and good. Letterboxing is old school. You use a compass, and usually there's puzzles involved, and there's stamps, so there's no trinkets that you have to deal with. So you carry a logbook. You have a stamp that is you. You find the logbook, you put your stamp in the logbook, see what other people have been there, you stamp your logbook with the stamp in the box. Atlas Quest and letterboxing.org are two great websites to go. They're super fun. It makes you go try out new parks. There are many in Ann Arbor, I highly recommend. And they're fun, and it's just a way to get out and create adventures. You also learn how to use a compass, which I think is a lost art and a great skill for kids to have. Next slide. I hope everyone knows that fourth graders get free passes to the national parks for themselves and their family. And so really encourage everyone to take advantage of this. The idea is to get kids involved. But if you have multiple kids, that gives you multiple years that you can go to the national parks for free, which is amazing. Not right now, although they're sort of open. They're not totally open, but hopefully someday we'll get them back. So highly recommend that. This is just a website for that. Next slide. I would not be a good pediatrician if I did not talk about how to stay safe outside. So I will share some things. Making sure that you protect yourself from the sun. The sun is amazing and wonderful. It's good to get out there. We all need good vitamin D, but it's really important to make sure we don't get too much sun. So teaching kids hopefully early to wear hats, really struggle, but you can try. Sunglasses, anything SPF 30 or higher, slather it on multiple times a day. I will share that I am not a huge fan of the spray sunscreens because I think you put like just a whiff of it on and think that you have enough, and then you end up getting burned as a result of it. But really putting sunscreen on kind of over your whole body. Rash guards, which in Australia they call sunburns sun rashes, and rash guards were originally designed in Australia to keep you from getting sunburned. So if you were ever wondering why rash guards, which are like long sleeve bathing suits, are called rash guards, because you're like, what are people doing that they're like rubbing up against things and getting rashes? It's related to that. So covering your skin is a nice way to also protect yourself against the sun. Next slide. And of course, bugs. Mosquitoes do carry things that are not great for us. Ticks, unfortunately, Lyme disease has made it to Michigan and made it to the Ann Arbor area, so trying to avoid ticks is really important. DEET is really the most effective bug spray for protecting yourself against these things. We don't want to use the high potency, 100% DEET kind of things, but things up to about 30% are safe to use for children. You don't want them to eat it, so not putting it on their hands or their face, but putting it on their bodies, not applying it more than once per day. So they do make these bug spray sunscreen combos. You heard me say you should reapply your sunscreen multiple times a day and bug spray only once a day. So those two actually do not make sense to combine together, so we don't recommend them. I like to, for kids, spray their hats, let the hat dry, and then you can put the hat on, and then there's a nice miasma of bug protection without it actually being directly on their skin. There are some other bug protections, picaridin and oil of lemon eucalyptus, that work okay for short periods of time. If you're not going to be out at dusk where there's lots of mosquitoes, they can be sometimes helpful. But if you're really out because you're camping or you're out when there's bugs flying everywhere, probably not going to be as effective. Next slide. Other dangers. I saw a kid this week with poison ivy, so I felt obligated to put this in here. These are some pictures of poison ivy. So you can get it kind of all sorts of different places, this sort of bubbly, blistery type of thing. Next slide. We all know the mantra, leaves of 3, let them be. So poison ivy are 3 leaflets. They have these nice serrated edges, so if it's a round, smooth edge, it's not poison ivy. And they come from axillary positions, so they all come from sort of the same spot and come out. So if you see them sort of spread down the leaf, that's not it. It can be a bush or a vine, and one of the big things that I see is as the leaves die and fall off, the vine is left behind. It's like a big, thick, hairy vine. It still has the urshadiol, the chemical that causes poison ivy. So sometimes we see kids kind of exposure in the late fall when the leaves aren't there, but it's not yet cold, where they get kind of the chemical on it. And they can be shiny. The picture of the leaves, you can kind of see some of them have a little bit of a shiny quality to it. Okay, so if your kid gets poison ivy, next slide, what are you going to do about it? Wash it off. So the best thing you can do is wash with soapy water. So if you think somebody has had contact with poison ivy, wash the clothes with soap. If you wash within 10 minutes, you can remove about 50% of the chemical that's going to cause the irritation and rash. If it's really itchy, a topical steroid, an antihistamine to keep from itching. If it's on the eyes, on the genital area, every teenage boy that does a Eagle Scout activity who comes to see me in clinic and has a rash, they've always gone to the bathroom while they were on their Eagle Scout activity, and they do not want to tell me this, but they always have a rash in parts of their body they would rather not. If it's really widespread, you need to go see your pediatrician, because we usually put those kids on oral steroids because you really need that to prevent it. There are some barriers. This product called Ivy Block is like a clay-based sort of cover that you can put on your skin so that if you get contact with the poison ivy, you're going to have protection from the chemical. Probably not something you're going to do for kids, but if you have poison ivy that you have identified in your yard and you're going to take it down and try to get rid of it, covering your body with clothes, covering any exposed skin with this Ivy Block can be helpful at decreasing your risk of getting it. And just as a public service announcement, never burn poison ivy. Bad things happen. Don't do it. Next slide. And now this was the teaser. This is the biggest risk. So this is my daughter, and if you have her your child spend a lot of time outdoors and teach them about food and where they come from, they will leave you and they will move to Montana, work on a farm, and spend all of their time backpacking and climbing and rock climbing, and you will lose them to places like this. I did not know what I was doing, but she tells me on a regular basis that I caused this problem, and it is probably true. Next slide. So don't just listen to me. I shared some of the things that, data that talk about why it's important for kids to spend time outside, and for us too, and also some ways to do it. But these are some great books that I really think are great. The Last Child in the Woods, Balanced and Barefoot, Outdoor Kids in an Inside World, and How to Raise a Wild Child, that are great sort of ideas and suggestions and fun things to read and share. Next slide. So thank you very much, especially to Eva and her parents for inviting me. It was fun to get to think about these things that I care a lot about and share some of the data around why it's important to get kids outside and let them play and take risks and do fun things, and also some ways to help keep them safe during that time. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, mine is less of a question than a comment. I'm a retired Scoutmaster of 30 plus years, and just about everything that you were talking about, we practice in scouting, including trying to give the scouts more autonomy in their daily activities and getting them outside and letting them experiment and explore. So just wanted to say that.
So I was the camper for my daughter's Girl Scout troop, and we also took them out and tried to do as many outdoor activities with them. And I will tell you that it's a rare backpacking trip that I go on that I don't run into a Boy Scout troop, which is always just really great to see opportunities and ways for people to get outside with folks even other than their parents, which is also helpful.
What was the lettered boxes you talk as opposed to geocaching, and where are those? Might those be in Ann Arbor?
So letterboxing, basically, I could go on for a long time, so I apologize in advance. People create a logbook and then a stamp, and the tradition is that you carve your own stamp. So this is a way to get, hands-on fine motor skills and things like that. And you hide them. And there's a website called letterboxing.org, or Atlas Quest is the other one. Atlas, like the globe, atlasquest.com, and you can look up letterboxes within a mile of where I live, basically, and you'll get a list of them, and you can look at them. You can see how long ago they were planted. So a letterbox that was planted 10 years ago might not still be there. People will post that they've found them, so you can sometimes look and say, I'm only going to look for ones that people have said that they found within the last 6 months. And then there's usually clues, so sometimes it's a word puzzle that you have to solve or just directions, and you, not always, but often use a compass to sort of find them, and they'll be hidden in the hole of a tree, underneath a log, under a bridge, in various places, and so you find it, and then you can log that you found them. And there are hundreds. I've found them in most of the parks in Ann Arbor, in the Arboretum, there's many. I think that they've had a couple letterboxes in the Mott, like the family center for people to use too. So sometimes they're in like libraries and places like that, but I found them everywhere that I've gone in the United States too. They're international. The reason they're called letterboxes, they actually come from England, and there's a big park in England called Dartmoor, and a group of people many years ago, put a metal box and they left like cards in it, and it's like a mailbox, and so it's because of that they call it letterboxing. But I like it because it doesn't involve a GPS device.
What are your favorite parks in town?
My favorite parks in town? Well, I live 5 houses from Hunt Park, so I love it because I can go there pretty easily and spend time there. I also am very lucky that I live really close to Bird Hills, and I just love going through Bird Hills. I feel like it's a way to get away from, it's so close, but it's a way to get away from everything and sort of be in the woods. There's these different parts of it where you have huge vistas that you can see through the trees, and I like that. You get to see deer. I've seen hawks fly through there. So, but I also like the little tiny parks where it's like a little handkerchief park, and you just kind of see that people have carved out a little bit of space for that. My favorite backpacking park is the Tetons in Wyoming, so I'm biased for that, but I love the Tetons a lot. I can repeat the question. I'll repeat the question.
I was wondering if you could talk about, and I may be totally wrong about this, but I am under the impression that there is emerging data about the connection between chronic pesticide exposure and diseases like ALS and Parkinson's. And we live in a condo neighborhood where they spray, so we spend a lot of time outside, but not in like around our house, which is annoying. So I was wondering if you could just talk about that connection.
So I don't have the data to be able to say exactly at my fingertips, but I think that all of the chemicals that we expose ourselves to are not great for us. And so that is true. I think that is why I like going to like things like Bird Hills and the parks, because while there is work done there to do controlled burns to try to manage some of the invasive species, you're more apt to be able to be in a more natural space without the addition of chemicals. You know, we are obsessed with having these like green lawns that are just grass and nothing else. And
I guess what I'm wondering is, do you feel like the data is consistent enough that it is a good idea to
avoid it.
keep a child from playing in a lawn that's been sprayed
I wouldn't.
for so many days or months?
Yeah, I would not have my kid play in a lawn that has been sprayed until after it has rained or been watered, would be the way that I would sort of balance getting outside with decreasing the exposure. If that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of interested in kids that don't have backyards and, you know, live in apartment buildings. So schools may be their only option of recess and physical ed. And are you aware of what schools are doing as they reduce the amount of physical activity?
I, again, am not going to have the data at my fingertips to tell you based on specifics, but I do think that it worries me when kids get in trouble because they're not behaving well in school and they get told they have to stay in for recess and things like that, because it probably is going to actually make things better if they go outside and do that. I think there are a lot of parents who appreciate the value of that physical activity and that recess and really argue against efforts to cut it. And then you go to middle school and high school and all of that is gone. And so, you know, how to speak up for it, how to work on, you know, the kids you know, places, being a volunteer to get kids outside in other ways is probably the best thing that we can do. There are really interesting, you know, efforts made to have gardens at schools and stuff like that. Michigan is not really great for that because the good season for gardens is not really the school season. And so it's always like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a school vegetable garden, but who's gonna maintain it over the summer and sort of building those things? You know, even a plant can be important. Caring for a living thing, growing it, that can be something that can be done pretty easily. Getting kids the traditional, like, grow a bean into a plant and watch it grow. You can do those kinds of things and get a little glimpse of nature in inside kind of thing. But we're talking about urban living and how that can sometimes be a challenge. But if we make efforts to make sure that we preserve park space, you can still get to nature even in the midst of New York City, for example. And I think it's important for us to remember that that's helpful because it's beautiful, but it's probably also really helpful for our health. Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. This was fun.
We really appreciated you being here. And this will be available on the YouTube channel if you didn't get a chance or want to tell someone to watch it. So thank you so much.